Hello, good afternoon, Father.
Good afternoon, my daughter. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's a little bit rainy today, but generally it's okay. How about yourself?
Cool. Well, it started off sunshiny, but um, I had to bring the washing in because the rain is coming.
Rain is here.
It's not very heavy though, it's just sprinkling, but I covered up my bicycle seat. It has a cut in it, and if the rain gets there, it wets the sponge. So when you ride again in the sunshine, I'll have a wet ass. So I kind of covered the plastic bag. It's quite um, rural.
Very. Well, this is going to be episode 3 or episode 2, part B, however we want to frame it.
Okay.
But it's cool. I'm glad we got to episode 3. It's not been an easy road. We've had some technical issues.
Yes, we have, and I've learned to be prepared.
Be prepared. Everything's charged.
Everything is charged and spare ones are available.
And at some point, we're going to actually have an in-person version of this, but we also have to figure out the tech for that too.
Okay. Leave that in your capable hands at the moment. I'll just be speaking.
You're just the talent. I'm the technical host.
Okay. Okay, brains.
What does that make you, Pinky?
No, that makes me muscle.
Muscle. Okay, you're the muscle. I'm the brains. I'm cool with that. I'm definitely not the muscle, so happy to be the brains. So, what are you drinking, my father?
Oh, A Plant was once a #1 hire company, and they'd come on site trying to get it to hire their stuff, and they'd give out free mugs and pens and hats and so forth. So this is the A Plant mug, reminding me of A Plant before it got taken over by Sunreach Rentals, which is just some gobbling up of companies as they do as they get bigger and better and restructuring. In it, I have High Mountain coffee from Jamaica Standard Products, Grandpa's factory. And this is the last of that £1 bag. So I'm sipping it carefully. But yeah, it's Jamaican coffee. It does taste different from Italian. And it was once a saying made by an uncle who was into PR. He said a taste like this cannot be acquired in an instant. And I figured that to be a very potent line to describe the quality of the coffee. It's quite nice.
It's a nice line to tell people when they're talking about instant versus percolated as well.
Yes, it does.
Well, I'm jealous of the Jamaica coffee. I think I have Asda's own Italian Strength 5 in my little spotty mug. This mug is actually a part of a set of 4. I believe it's actually the first mugs I ever owned. I think I got them as like a Christmas present in high school or something. But so this mug is like 15 years old at least. And its brothers and sisters have not survived. So only this spotty mug still exists. But it's a good one. It's a really nice size. So I get like a good amount of coffee. But I just had a health coaching checkup, and one of the things that they were saying is that I need to drink more water, and I definitely do. And so but I keep trying, and I'm not really good at remembering to drink water. So the thing we're going to try now is that every time I have a cup of coffee, I have to have a cup of water first, and that should hopefully create definitely give me like 6 cups of water a day.
Okay, good.
I'm on my 3rd cup of coffee, so I'll have another cup of water after this.
Okay, good one. I'm on my 3rd myself. Yeah, I went through. I did medical checkup this morning, and I'm good to go. Yeah, they said that the whole body is not as worn out as I thought it was. I'm all right. I'm good. They said I'm quite physical, and I'm all right. So I'm happy to hear that.
That's good. So we both had a little check-in. medically
Yeah,
this morning.
you have to, you can't wait till too late,
No,
so
no. Oh, good. I'm glad. So we're tip top shape. Just need more water for me,
uh,
and just general wellness for both of us.
good for you.
All right. So, do you have a story for me?
Well, coming off the wellness, I think we'd have to deal with the nurse at Munro.
Nurse at Munro. All right. So this is part two of
Yeah,
the Munro stories.
this is part two of the Munro story.
How many parts do you
Um,
think they're gonna be?
I
TBC.
don't know. We see how much time. We see how much time we have. I need to get to graduation. So, um, yeah, nurse. In first form, we had a nurse Helwig. She was a German of the German descent. Had a son who was 6 foot odd, who was quite gifted with saving like old birds and so on. He had a sparrowhawk as a pet that he had rescued. But she also taught music, piano to be specific. And my mother thought it would be a good extracurricular activity for me to learn piano. I was useless. It was boring. My fingers couldn't bend. I couldn't remember anything other than I wanted to go and play football and not sit around.
Auntie Ali will now know
So,
where I get it from.
right, well, it was almost like punishment. But trying to um, be a more rounded person and not understanding how to read music, which later realized that people see musical notes and see words like how we'd read the alphabet. And I never really got to that stage. The 5 lines were a bit difficult and I didn't know what I was really seeing. But anyway, I stuck with it for a while until she gave up on me more than I gave up on her. And that was a feat in itself that I'm quite proud of because she would stick around and try to get everybody to take lessons. So she went away, and then came Nurse Robinson. Nurse Robinson was from Black River originally, um, sister to Big Rob, who lived beside Uncle Michael, and she was such a sweet lady. However, we had an outbreak as like in fourth form at this time, going to fifth form. We had an outbreak of lice, head lice. So, being a boarding school, to get on top of it, anybody who had lice, you had to treat it and remove the lice and so forth. Back in the day, that's how it was done. So she had a lot of hair to cut, and she was not up to it. So I volunteered to help cut hair because they said with my kind of hair, lice can't stick in it, which was which was false. But needless to say, I got my scissors out and I was there helping cutting people's hair. So unfortunately, one of the boys went home, and when his mother saw the job I'd done on his hair, she came back to school furious and accosted the nurse, saying, "Look what you've done to my son's head." And nurse said, "Your son had lice." He said, "But you don't need to do it like that." He said, "Lice is easily transmitted. Please bend over. Let me check yours to see if you have lice as well." And that put an end to the argument. So that got me out of that one. She was quite a character. And as we went through later in school years, my friend Germanite, who was uh, friends from prep school coming through, he once played the piano. And we had a bet. He would do the morning um, the assembly in the church, and he'd play the piano coming in and play a hymn, and on the way out, he play the march going out. And he was bet by a nurse and a few other people that he couldn't disturb the assembly with his piano playing. And sure enough, on the march out, he just started banging on the keyboard like he went off his head. Walked out straight up the nurse's office into the sick bay where he had a cup of tea and had a plate collecting the money from everybody who had bet him. So he was just a character. But nurse encouraged it and it was good fun. Uh, nurse station was located above the kitchen and the staff dining room, and the lack of tomato ketchup and pickle pepper sauce was always remedied by a visit to nurse, and then when she wasn't looking, we'd go downstairs into the staff dining room and get a bottle for ourselves and bring it back upstairs. So if you were privileged to eat in nurse's sick bay area, you'd always have ketchup and pickle pepper sauce. That was reserved for sixth formers at the time. Right, so that was nurse in a nutshell. She fell over once and broke her hand, and we were very sympathetic. Sorry, she broke both hands.
Mm.
So she had both arms in casts back in the day. That's how they did it, and it was one of the times we really had to. That was empathy. First time we really had to get empathetic with somebody who meant a lot to us and found that they were being struggling with situation that they had been faced with. So yeah, right. So a legend at school was the chemistry teacher, Mr. Hard, who, based on one of the stories of his heroics, I was able to help myself in a situation. We had a chlorine tank to chlorinate the water for the school, and it developed a leak, and there was chlorine gas leaking, which is heavier than air, and it was poisonous, and nobody couldn't get in there to turn off the tank. And Mr. Hall took a wet towel, wrapped around his face, went in there and turned off the tap and came back out, based on the premise that the water would absorb the chlorine before you get a chance to breathe it in. Right. 20, 30 years later, I was installing a chlorine tank on a water system without my glasses. This is when I knew I needed glasses because I couldn't read the little thing that says place lead washer between the valve and the pipe. And the lead washer, being soft, would compress and make a perfect seal. So when I put the pipe and the valve and tightened it up and turned on the tank, there was a leak of gas. And I could hear the leak of gas. The room was very confined. I had to step outside and figure, how am I going to turn off that gas? So I did, wet a towel, wrap around my face, step inside and turn it off. Thanks, Mr. Hart. These are life lessons you learn. And, they might be isolated to the fact that being at Munro, you're exposed to different aspects of things. And when you had a hero among a group of boys, even though he wasn't the most athletic, and he was in his own way a rebel, we still regarded him in the status that he had achieved, So, yeah.
It's really interesting to think about teaching, and I really admire teachers because it's a very difficult job. But both of those situations you're talking about are lessons that, well, the empathy one, I imagine the nurse wasn't actually there to teach, didn't think that her experience was going to be a life lesson of empathy. And then secondly, I don't think Mr. Harris could have realized that the lesson he taught you that day would come back how many years later and help you.
Well, I was 40 at the time, yeah.
So, wow. So the teachers have to know the lessons that they're actually going to impart on you, like actively. And then they're also so influential into the other lessons that they teach by hapstance. It's amazing.
Yeah. And as you said, it's so important that the lessons you teach at the stage, at every stage, and your lifestyle at every stage is one of a role model and something that people can look up to, because if it wasn't, it would make inappropriate behavior acceptable. And those lessons are hard to unlearn, So, yeah.
And I think we've gotten to a point where we're a little bit more open about what role models can be. And I know for my generation, one of the biggest role models or modeled behavior that we're trying to kind of show is accepting when you've made a mistake or you're not actually like good at something or you weren't naturally good at it. Like that's something that I've had to be imparting when dealing with Aiden. Is kind of telling him, this was hard for me too. It wasn't just easy. I'm not just going to model how I want the end product to be, but I'm letting you know that the journey is a journey and it was difficult for me too. And just, you're not struggling alone. Because I think, like, I don't know, my perception has been that in different generations, the role modeling was very much about modeling perfection or um, perfect, or like the kind of,
Get on with it. Get
yeah,
on with it.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's not easy to just get on with it because, as you said, everybody has different struggles that they face, right? And the way it was overcome or you were trying to be pushed through it in my time,
Mm.
I may have some scars, and which, especially in spelling, I couldn't
Mm.
spell. I'm so glad for spell check. I have it on every instrument. And I'm so aware that my letters that need to go out or whatever I write, I require a spell check because I will make mistakes. And some people don't see it as being natural. They think it's a reflection on your ability to communicate, and it isn't. Yes, but
Yeah.
anyhow,
Well, a
that
future talk
is,
for us, maybe we'll discuss dyslexia, but I don't want to throw that
yeah,
one at you without
no,
preparation. But that's an experience we share, but responses to it have been varied.
yes, okay. Right, so let me see. Being at Munro, there were 35 students in the class, and my desire was to play football and everything that was outdoors. My interest was not in the classroom itself, except for geography. I did like that. But my ambition was not to come last. So I would at least come at 34 out of 35. Always fighting for the bucket, they called it. But I was keeping one step ahead and still enjoying myself playing games. And you've been there for 5 years and all levels are coming up and nobody expects much out of you. You've outgrown the uniform that your mother sent you to school in, and it's now catching you above your ankle, you know. And you're looking forward to sixth form where you can wear a different kind of color trousers and white shirt and blue trousers instead of khaki uniform. And yet you look at yourself and you say, look, I've been here 5 years now. What am I going to leave with? Nothing, you know. That's a terrible travesty of justice because I've done my time and I need to have some paperwork behind. So in the 3 weeks before exam started, I came up with this theory that says, for you to think better, you need to have better blood flow. So I would get up in the mornings and I'd run across country over the hills, about a 3 mile run. And then I'd sit down and study for 2 hours and then go to class, try to take notes, whatever the teacher was revising. I participated better. And this was 3 weeks before exam.
It worked.
I got my results. My uncle got my results because he was chairman of the board. He got them before me, back in the day, it was always a telephone. There was no mobile phone. So a telephone call came through to my mother, which said that, to surprise everybody, David has got 7 O levels. And when I got the news, I realized that I wasn't the last in the class either. So, which allowed me to get through the sixth form, which was just an excuse to really play more football, party a little harder,
And wear the
be
blue
a bit
uniform.
more. Got me. Daddy had a pair of old trousers from 1950s with pleats and a cuff in the bottom. They were big for me, but that was my sixth form uniform with a big white shirt that was much too big. So I was always looking like I was hanging, shirt out. The shirt was never out the pants. It was so big that it just ballooned around me. And yeah, I thought it was cool. I had my tie. I could tie my tie with the longest tie, trying to reach a knee with length, a very thin tie. Things that we did
Is this the
to
70s?
set in the 70s, yes. And this was to set a trend of your behavior. So when they
Describe
decided to
your
give a
hair for
prefect,
people as well, because I think that that's a big part of the look. The baggy shirt, the baggy trousers, the long skinny tie. What's the hair?
okay, well, from the age of 15, I started growing hair on my chest. By the time I got to 17, I had a slight beard, right? Enough that when playing football for Munro, the headmaster offered me his personal razor to go and shave because I couldn't represent the school with that growth of hair in my face. And he needed his razor back because he shaves every day. So I did that. And when I came back, I realized it was time to make a passionate plea to my father to say, Daddy, can you write me a doctor's certificate to say I get bumps when I shave and therefore I'm excused from shaving, which he did. So I didn't have to shave again. However, my hair, my father said that I could keep my hair as long as I want, as long as I combed it. So it was long enough for me to pull strands from the back and suck on it. It was curly. And when I did sweat, which I did quite often and very profusely, it formed into, well, the best way to describe it is that the boys at school, my pet name was Eel Head, because they look like eels hanging down from my head. Yeah.
Ringlets, though. Like eelhead is
It
just
was
not on a not a beautiful name for ringlets.
right. I say that because just last month, when visiting Jamaica, and my good friend Richard Sharp came to visit, and I called him Latty, and he said, "Hello, Eelhead." And I warned the wife. I said, "Wife, if David calls me Latty, I'm going to call him Eelhead," which you wear as a badge of honor. Yeah, it was very long and straggly. So the whole the whole instead of looking like Boris with his head all scattered, right? Mine was more contained, right? And I didn't have that kind of physique. I had a very athletic physique, no muscle, just no fat, And I enjoyed activity, regular track and field, football, So yeah, and my style was so catching that they also had another name for me called modeler, because if I was keeping goal and I could normally just catch a ball, I would actually dive and make it look pretty and bring it down. And it's those are names that stick with you. Oh, it was stylish as well, It wasn't just dramatic.
All right.
That
Well,
name that
there you
yeah,
go.
that name came to haunt me many years later when attending a fashion show, and the lady who was modeling, she came down the steps and walked down the aisle in the seating arrangement, and I knew her personally, and I made a comment, and she stopped and she said, "Please walk me back up to the stage." And in the middle of the fashion show, I had to get up and escort her back to the stairs and help her up. And walking back to my seat in the dark, I could hear them shouting, "Modeler, modeler."
Oh, amazing. All right. So I'm just going to have to preventing another technical difficulty. We're going to do a little pause here for imagined commercial breaks. And we will return once I have set up a second Zoom meeting because it's about to kick me out.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So I'll see you on the other side. So we're back from our imaginary commercial break. I may need to record some ads for maybe some coffee companies to get them
I,
interested.
I thank the sponsors.
Thank you, sponsors. We're gonna manifest it. So you were telling us about modeler, you
Right.
footballing.
It was a profile I had,
Mm.
at school, which um, endeared me to some, or I figured I was all right, but it didn't go down well with the administrative side of school. So they gave out prefects, and prefects were given to sixth formers. And of the 36 sixth formers, 4 of us didn't get it. 2 because they had been suspended previously for breaking bounds, and therefore no regard for the school rules. I wouldn't say I never broke bounds. I was never caught, but regardless, I wasn't offered.
You were probably
Uh,
suspected.
I was, yeah, I was on the most. Uh, I became my title official because they gave the list of the prefects, right? So you had a list of prefects, head boy, and all the prefects going below. And therefore, some friend of mine wrote in Old English. I became the president of the Supreme Council of Los Rejectos. That was my title, right? And not having the responsibility of a prefect, that means I didn't have to have a classroom for myself that I was responsible for. It meant that I didn't have to stand in line outside of assembly to check shoes to make sure they're tidy and everybody had belt on and clothes were proper attired. I didn't have that responsibility, which was great for me because I could, as a sixth former, walk out of assembly in the morning first and didn't have anything to report or meetings to go to or anything that required my my dedicated attention. So it had that benefit. I'm sure my parents would have liked to have seen that on my CV or on my school report that I was a prefect. And
I'm
in
guessing
truth,
that's ruthless.
I don't think after getting 7 O levels, I don't think I could do anything wrong anyway. So that was all right. Yeah, so it gave me time in sixth form to have less classes. We're supposed to have more study time, which was equated to more time on my hands, which equated to better football, more socializing. Love the radio and the music that came on the radio. I actually had an old tube amplifier, which was part of a original integrated sound system that came from England when in 1961. It's a Leak amp, quite a well-known brand at the time, but it was outdated. And I found a way of taking it out of the cabinet and stringing it up behind my bed and plugging it in with speakers in 2 beer boxes, one on either side of the dormitory. And on Saturday, we would have a party upstairs until somebody stepped too loud on the wooden floorboards and the master downstairs would hear the jumping up and down and come upstairs, at which time you had to hide it. So the best way of hiding it was to throw your laundry bag over the amps, over the tubes that are glowing, It was fun. It was good. But it in saying this, I've given you an idea that even though school was for some people like prison, and some people really hated it, where it was sometimes too much testosterone, and I wouldn't
Machismo.
say, sorry,
And machismo? You know that word?
no, a
Okay.
cheese mill.
Machismo. So it's like
Oh,
macho.
macho. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that a lot of that was there, but um, it it offered some comradeship that developed in the lines between or amongst those parts. We had four of us, Devon Beck. That was each person's name is part of that, right? So David, Ronnie Smith, Devon, Beckford, and some other last person. We made a little hollow in the bush and made a camp out of twigs and had our own little camp site, which was called Devernbeck. And if we needed to get away to just chill out, we'd go to Devernbeck and signal, and we knew where we were going until people found it and they wanted to be part of it. And it was that communal life kind of thing as well, because at that stage you start to realize who gravitates towards you and where you can make allegiances and alliances that can make facilitate a better life for where you are at the time. So the experience was there, but the fun was there. The sad times were there as well, because you know, you learn that you can't win every time, and it's not nice not winning, you know. And you had periods of learning which were outside of the school curriculum, which made you face life outside of school and later on in life with the resilience to be able to overcome. And I think perhaps in the first part of this discussion, one of the things I said about Munro was that once you've done your 7 years there, right, you can fit in anywhere, and anybody who has done it, you will bring them on board to your organization with you because you know what it took to get through those days, you know. So yeah, we waited until graduation, and graduation was good in that I had a blue nylon, blue three-piece suit. Friend of mine, his grandfather doesn't hear so well, and he asked for a gray suit, but his grandfather got him a green suit. So that's what he wore. And we weren't into the drinking and smoking. We were just into getting out the door, you know. And it was a few pictures. I took pictures at times. So I still have some of sometimes some quite good friends in high and low places on that final day. And it was getting on the bus and going home at the end of term for every time except for that one, because that was your last day and your exams finished. And your parents came and cleaned you out of school, got you, put you together, told the teachers thank you, and went away and didn't really have the urge to go back and see or visit for many years, you know. And but still kept in touch with quite a few other guys. And it influenced me living in Black River rather than Kingston, because when needed to make a decision of where and what I was going to do with my life, I figured I had more friends in St. Elizabeth between my schoolmates and people who I knew from that area than in Kingston. And I had the farm there, so I chose I'd live there, and I went there, you know, from probably 19, started going during the week, and by the time I was 20, 21, it was my post box was 5 Spence Post Office, Brompton, St. Elizabeth. So that in a quite general sense is life at Munro, from going through the first day through to going home.
Thanks for sharing. I mean,
Yeah.
I did 1 year at Hampton and I didn't board. And for the people who don't know, Hampton is the all-girls school, also boarding, but also day students, because Munro had day students, day boys as well, didn't it? And
Yes, I
Munro
did.
is the all boys school, and they're not close,
Three,
close, but
three
they're
and a half,
close.
3.5 miles, 3.5 miles
Yeah,
with a very steep hill and a valley between.
and a infamous story of a tunnel that between the two schools and ghosts and
Which
people meeting in the tunnel. Pure Duffy story there.
and they're not true. I went into the cave looking for the tunnel, and it only gets more narrow, and good sense prevails. And in that cave
Mm,
was the first time I saw what darkness really was. We were taken in there by a geography teacher on a geography trip. When we went in, she said, "Turn off your lights," and we did. It was the ultimate in darkness.
mm,
It is. Um, it would be scary if you couldn't turn back on your light,
yeah.
because then you'd have to, your whole sensory system would have to go in overdrive. But yeah, it was the first time I saw true darkness, and yeah, but the tunnels don't meet. They
No.
don't, there's no, the only way to get there is to go by the road.
Yes.
And
And the schools were
um,
connected. The boys used to come over. Like, so when we did Miss Hampton, there were boys from Munro who came and like escorted us and that sort of
mhm,
thing. And I feel like sports day, we'd see them sometimes, and there would be some classes that you would do at either school if you were in the older years. By my time at least,
yeah,
which
yeah,
was the 2000s, so 30 years later, let's see.
yeah,
Um, but having had that kind of insight into going to Hampton only for that short period of time, I kind of had an image of what Monroe would be like. But it's really interesting to hear it from you because everybody has a different story of it. And I guess because it's such close quarters, your experience is really determined by who's around you, like who else is in your year, what teachers you had, and I can see how anything in that equilibrium being off could also completely change your experience.
yeah.
So thank you for sharing. I really enjoyed hearing about it.
Good.
Because growing up is a weird time anyway. So, that
Yeah,
ages of 11 to 18,
yeah.
everything's changing and it is scary. And also the rest of your life happens. Like you say, you get all of these, you have to then react to your life whilst you're in school. And it's a different experience.
Hmm. Yeah. And the friends that you made from there are friends that you have kept for life. I really have some good friends.
Can I ask a technical question about that then? So
Yeah.
this you're talking 70s, 80s, but do you graduate in the 80s or you
Yeah.
graduate in 70s?
79 was when I left there.
You left there. How did you keep in touch with your school friends in the 70s?
In the 70s, how do you
Like
keep in touch with?
how do you not lose people before Facebook, you know,
Yeah, yeah, but
before mobiles?
um, your friendship circles would probably include one, and if you made all those circles symmetrical or joined together, you'd find great connections where you could follow up on somebody if you asked what happened to Prof. Someone, oh, I saw his cousin last week and he's doing such and such. And you find that that is the way we used to do it. But when you do buck up each other, you sit down and you have a good chat and you tell about other people's story. Verbal communication and storytelling while together would be bringing in all the satellite friends that you haven't seen. You get the stories from them coming in as well because we always hear somebody's name and we want to know what else is happening in their life. So yeah, we didn't write letters. That was reserved for your mother or your girlfriend. You know? So
Fair enough. The proper catch ups. Because I know
yeah, yeah.
sometimes what happens to me now is that I've kept track of people via social media so much that I'll see them and I feel like I've talked to them. I feel like I know what's going on in their life. And so then our catch ups are either with someone I don't know very well, telling them all of the very intimate things I do know about them from social media, or people I
Mm,
do know quite well, like feeling like I don't need to talk about the things that actually, if they told me versus what they tell the whole world, it'd be a different conversation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's sad in a way because there's no Sorry.
Okay. I'll mute. I'll pause it.
Yes.
So
Well,
you said about like writing letters only to your mother or your girlfriend, and so your wife called. You summoned her.
you know, summoned all the spirits came out and whatever we call them next. So, yeah.
We're not going to summon in spirits yet. We already touched on Duppy stories. We're not going to go into
Right.
just
Yeah, so it's sometimes you miss out on a lot is transmitted in how you face to face talk with people, and the expressions, the emotions that they go through. You know, when you see it on social media, sometimes I suppose, you know, everybody can relate to, it's not my type of post, but I have to say that such and such, and it comes in a format that probably you get numb to it, you know, which sometimes belittles the person's experience that they want to share. But once you have a chance to sit and talk with them, you know, having a cup of coffee, yeah, high mountain, brewed in Jamaica. Yeah.
we're gonna try for the High Mountain sponsorship, not the Asda own brand.
Oh, I will do that one for free. That's something you grew up with, you know. It is. I can remember going to the coffee factory and the smell of coffee from way back when. It has always been nice. And taste is not acquired in an instant.
Now you just have to end it and say High Mountain, and we can clip it and send it to them.
Yeah. So it was back in the day. It was meet and greet and parties was a social event. I mean, we didn't really have, or we didn't have the kind of space restrictions that you have here. So when you did have a party, you know, 60 people turn up, it would be a good party. You know, you might get 120, then you start bordering on a bit of problems. You know, but by the time you finish a night out with them guys, you're quite aware of what's happening around you, who is doing what. You know, so yeah, different communications.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to put in a request for a future story to be about some of these parties, because you've given us glimpses of the party stories in the past, and I want to hear them. So we'll save that for another episode and probably pull this one to a close. Just to
Yes.
say thank you. That was a really great story. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that anyone listening got something out of it. I would like to encourage any Munronians. Is that how you say it?
Monronians, yes,
Munronians
Monronians.
and Hamptonians. If you want to comment about your experiences, that would be nice to keep sharing. And again, any questions, comments, or suggestions for us? Any stories you want to request for David? Please write in. Let us know. The Monroe story was actually a request from your other daughter, Ashley. So we're responsive. This is a podcast for the people.
Yeah, I like that.
So until next time, I'm gonna close and say bye and talk to you soon, Daddy.
Bye, darling. Thank you. Love you. Bye.